Right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. We are recording on a Monday afternoon. We're going to talk about the repriced Super Bowl MVP market with 4 teams left, and then we will talk Australian Open men's and women's side. Let's start off with the MVP market, Drew. Patrick Mahomes is plus 275, Josh Allen plus 300, Saquon Barkley 4-1, Jalen Hurts 5-1, Jaden Daniels is plus 750, and that is your top tier in a bit, and then you get into Kelsey, AJ Brown, James Cook. Do you think there is any particular angle into this market? Because it's a little, it's kind of a basic market in a sense where you have 3 teams where all the equity is so concentrated on the quarterback. And then you have the Eagles, who are a bit more of a wild card, where their equity is being very much divvied up between Saquon and Hurts at the top.
Yeah, I think that's the angle. So after kind of having some flirtations with getting involved with the Commanders because of the Hurts injury, I now kind of think there will be a pretty good entry point once we get some injury reports and Hurts is missing practice. I think he will come through. I think he will play. I think he will be fine. And I think in general, the overall makeup of this Eagles team is going to be enough to get the win in the NFC Championship game. And we'll likely be betting on the Eagles again this week, even though it was a miserable experience last week and ultimately ended in a push. But that said, I'm pretty prepared to just kind of write off the Commanders at this point. And honestly, if you like them, you're better off going to the futures market anyway, I think, because you can find some big numbers out there like 720. So Daniels at 750 doesn't really inspire me. But the general kind of vibe I have right now is that the Eagles are your most likely title winners because I think it's a 50-50 match on the other side. And, one of those 2 teams is obviously going home. My guess would be the Eagles would be dogs to Buffalo or Kansas City in the Super Bowl, but it would be very small. This again is of course assuming that Jalen Hurts comes through and plays this week, plays fine, and then doesn't exacerbate whatever injury he has. So let's say that the Eagles are the most likely winner and that their that their chances of winning the Super Bowl are something like 33 or 35% in that ballpark. We can argue about the precision there, but their fair price to win the Super Bowl should be in the 2-1 range. Then I actually think the equity is flipped upside down in that one, where Barkley is your most likely representative for the Eagles. The matchup that excites me the most, if I was to bet Barkley MVP right now, would be if the Bills win. I think the defense for the Chiefs, to me at least, is a little bit more lopsided in terms of you want to get it done through the air against the Chiefs, whereas you want to get it going on the ground against the Bills, I feel like. And Barkley is sort of this kind of absolute nightmare matchup, explosive, home run hitter. Like this is kind of the exact runway to getting your Super Bowl MVP. So I would actually say that this is a very incredibly rare. I don't even remember the last time this has happened, where I think that the number one most likely MVP is not the quarterback of the team that has the best chance of winning the Super Bowl as we stand on the doorstep of the championship games.
Yeah, I think the closest parallel of recent vintage would be Cooper Kupp and Stafford in the Rams-Bengals Super Bowl. But even then, I was very high on Kupp going into that and ultimately got lucky because Odell was probably on his way to winning that before he did his ACL. But that was a similar dynamic where so much of the offense was funneled to one person who wasn't the quarterback. This is, I think, even to a more pronounced degree, where I was very high on Kupp, but I still thought Stafford was more likely than Kupp to actually win. This one, I think that Barkley might just be straight up more likely than Hurts to win. And they run the ball with such volume that Barkley just doesn't have games where he's 14 for 69 like other running backs. It just really happens so infrequently. Do you think that Jalen Carter is more than a 2%? Do you think he's more than 2% of Philadelphia's equity? Because if he is, then 150-1 is too big.
I would say so, but again, that's a little matchup dependent, because if the Bills are there, then I think the Eagles defense is kind of drawing dead as far as a potential MVP steal. And if the Chiefs are there, certainly their interior offensive line is strong enough that they may be able to hold Carter at bay. And then, like the Eagles defense being recognized. I guess the two, this is crazy. So what, like the actual number for Hurts is probably just wrong. Like it should be much higher, because like I feel like the most likely thing that happens here if the Eagles win the Super Bowl is Barkley is the story of the playoffs for that team, and he is your Super Bowl MVP with just a normal Barkley performance, an outstanding Barkley performance, and then it's a slam dunk, obviously. But if the other kind of story to tell is the Eagles defense was amazing and they got them here, and Carter, I guess, would be the Carter or Bond would be the guy that would get the shine there. And Bond, I think, is kind of intriguing to me if it's like a Seahawks over the Broncos type of a Super Bowl where the defense does all of the heavy lifting and buries a Mahomes or an Allen. But but again, like the matchup for Carter, I think, is enough for him to be a pass for me at price. It sounds like you might have a different opinion.
No, not necessarily. I think the issue is that it's just such a high bar for defensive players, and you are counting on 99th percentile outcomes some of the time. Like, and the other thing too is that like Jalen Carter had a 10 out of 10, like 100th percentile game against the Rams, where he has 2 sacks as an interior defensive lineman and a forced fumble and the epic kind of game-winning play at the end. He wouldn't have sniffed MVP off of that. It just goes to Saquon. It's automatic. It's not even close. Right. Now, Saquon's not going to run for 200 yards every game, but he does it, not so infrequently, but pretty infrequently. I do think that one thing with this award is to kind of weight to pedigree some, where like he's a Super Bowl MVP. It's a big deal. These are human beings voting on this. They need to feel good about who they're going to give Super Bowl MVP. And that's why it just weights so much to the quarterback over and over again, in that, the first Chiefs Super Bowl where they beat the Niners, like Mahomes didn't play great. He didn't have a good stat line. Didn't really do anything until halfway through the fourth quarter with the massive 3rd and 15 or whatever to Tyreek Hill. But didn't feel comfortable giving it to, a running back in a timeshare. So Mahomes gets the tiebreak. And so I think that when you look at the pedigree aspects, like obviously Mahomes, will kind of put the Commanders to the side, given they are the longest shot on the board, and Daniels just gobbles up so much of their equity. But Mahomes, Allen, and the Eagles, like Barkley and Hurts have so much pedigree, but in terms of other guys who could win a tiebreak based on pedigree, like, if Chris Jones wrecks the game, if Jalen Carter wrecks the game and none of the offensive players have a great performance, then that can be the case. But for the most part, if you're lacking in pedigree, you need to do stuff that is just completely undeniable. Like there's like Malcolm Smith's ridiculous Super Bowl, and there was no other standout in that game statistically. And he needed to be like Percy Harvin or whatever. So that was an easier fight to win than if, Marshawn Lynch had gone ballistic in that game. So I think for the most part, like, you don't want to get so cute with Super Bowl MVP and look for 200 to 1 shots like the Jawan Jennings of the world, even though he almost came close to winning, because even though it can happen, it's the market price generally is not going to be value relative to fair. So I think this is a very good market to live bet, because it's very difficult to price in real time, and a number of books now do offer it live. So I think that is probably the best angle in. I think there's some plus 550 on Barkley around. I think that is decent. I think he should be more like 50 to 55% of Philadelphia's equity. So there's a little bit of meat on the bone. I'd rather bet that than bet the Eagles at their current Super Bowl price. But if you're looking at Chiefs and Bills players, the only place I would really look is at running back. And it's really just for the Bills, because James Cook is 60 to 1. Josh Allen is 3 to 1. If I'm going up against Mahomes or Allen in a dome, I want someone whose production is statistically divorced from their superstar quarterback. And so that really just leads to the running back, and the idea that, particularly with James Cook, that the Bills, they have been fairly run heavy of late. And the idea that, Allen might have a game where, he throws the ball 25 times and James Cook has 2 touchdowns and a huge game on the ground, like that is viable. But outside of that, I don't think there's too much meat on the bone here.
Yeah, we completely agree. I mean, it is a very, very challenging thought exercise to come up with who wins MVP, if not Allen, if the Bills win the Super Bowl, similarly with Daniels and the Commanders. The Chiefs one is maybe the one that I'm just curious if you had to take a non-Mahomes Chief, who is it? And I guess the reason I'm kind of asking this is there going to be voter fatigue for Mahomes at this point? And if so, do we have to recognize that Mahomes is just a Spagnola merchant at the? No, I'm joking, obviously. But like the Chiefs' defense is certainly going to be would be a factor for them to get the victory over the likes of the Eagles. In my opinion, they would have to show up. They would have to do what they've been doing and keeping running backs in a box. And I guess is who is the Chief if not Pat?
I think that Mahomes is interesting because like Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, they are so statistically prolific for the most part that it is really hard to see anyone else winning, despite the the potential James Cook very narrow kind of pathway if Allen doesn't throw that much. But with Mahomes, like this version of Mahomes is not statistically prolific and hasn't been for the past 2 years. So it's a little bit more wide open. And yeah, the fact that he's already won 2 of these, I do think pushes back against the kind of arbitrary, like if Josh Allen is within the same like stratosphere as James Cook, he's going to win MVP.
Right.
Mahomes, I don't think will get that arbitrary bump because he's already done it twice. So I think the guy who'd probably be most appealing to me would be Chris Jones at 100-1, just because he does have the pedigree, does have the potential for loud moments, and there is a chance that he's one of the great defensive players of his era. He's been a mainstay of this team as one of its superstars, and if he is to have 2 sacks in the Super Bowl and Mahomes has one of his 210 passing yards, 1 touchdown type of game that he's not afraid of these days, then 2 sacks from Chris Jones in a really loud moments and constant pressure, then that could win. So he would probably be the guy at 100-1 that is most interesting. I just think the backfield now is just like Pacheco had 5 carries. He had 4 more carries than Matt Ariza in the Texans game. So that backfield is too split. Kelsey's price, I think, is just too poison at 25-1. So Jones would be the direction I go there.
Yeah, I dig that. And I would actually even say that the fact that the Rams were able to generate as much pressure, particularly up the interior, against that mighty Eagles offensive line is worth following. And that could be a Jalen Hurts. That could be who he is now with the injury that he sustained.
Yeah, Dexter Lawrence had a massive game against the Eagles earlier in the season as well, rushing from the interior. Okay, Manchester City tries to climb back up the Premier League table this Saturday when they face Chelsea. City beat the Blues at the beginning of the season. Can they do it again this weekend? Find out at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Peacock. All right, let's pivot to the Southern Hemisphere. Australian Open, start with the women's side. Talk about some of these quarterfinals on Tuesday evening. Madison Keys having a bit of a moment. She's -200 against Svitolina, +160. Emma Navarro keeps rolling, 7-1 against Iga Swiatek, who is -1200 there. Do you have a bet in either of these matches?
That Iga price kind of blew me away, honestly. Like I've been against Emma, a couple of times this tournament, and she's come through. She's playing a lot of tennis and is probably a little bit out of gas, one would assume, which is kind of why we're seeing that rich of a price. I think Iga is going to be likely a monster favorite in your semifinals, which means she should be, I think, the short shot right now, considering that Sabalenka, even being the better player, is going to have a tougher path. The matchup for Sabalenka in this quarterfinal is not especially concerning to me, but certainly the Coco Gauff potential on the horizon is noteworthy. Iga's shortened, as you can see on the screen, to +160. I completely agree. I right now have her at just over 38% to win this title, and I think Sabalenka should be on. Really, you probably could flip those 2 prices. Keys-Svitolina is a little bit of a consolation, maybe. That's not fair or nice, I guess, but I don't know that Keys or Svitolina has the high level game to go up against an Iga in form, which she surely is right now. And Keys is kind of a fun and fascinating story because, like, for whatever reason, like, she brings her best at these for these slams, has never broken through to winning one. It would be an amazing story if she got to a final here. That would sort of be like kind of a very well earned crown in terms of achievement, career achievement for her. She's been to one final before. It was the U.S. Open. I believe Sloane Stephens got her in straights. Might have been 2-1. I don't remember. But Keys has always played her best tennis in these slams. And Svitolina, while a dangerous player and a very, very smart player and very kind of crafty in terms of strategic winning, deploying different styles of tennis during a given match, I don't think necessarily matches up well against a Keys. So if you are curious, this is not a new head-to-head. We have 5 matches in the book between Miss Svitolina and Miss Keys, and including 3 of them in slam settings, 2 U.S. Opens and 1 Australian Open head-to-head. These were a long time ago, 2017, 2019, 2019, when we saw them play. And Svitolina has kind of completely, kind of gone to a new phase of her game in the time since. And when she came up against Keys in 2022 in Adelaide, Keys really had no issues at all handling her game. So I think that's really what's informing this price and why you're seeing Keys as such a reasonable favorite. But I don't think she has a decent chance to beat Iga. And I think, the kind of perfect storm here for Iga to win this title is Coco Gauff takes out Sabalenka. Sabalenka has issues in the semifinals. Like, this is not a new story. Like, she is a little bit in her own head, and Gauff is playing well enough to take her to task. So, I would price a Sabalenka Iga final something in the ballpark of Sabalenka minus 215. I would expect a Gauff Iga final is something in the ballpark of Iga about minus 160, 150, somewhere in that ballpark. So that's sort of the way that the landscape is shaped right now, where I think there's really one stumbling block here for Sabalenka, and it's the semifinal matchup against Gauff. There's really no stumbling block here for Iga, although she would be a dog to Sabalenka. That's your final. And I think in general, the positions that I have right now are looking pretty good that Iga is going to get to the final. And then you probably can either eject with a bet at price on Coco or just take your medicine and bet Sabalenka in that one.
Okay. What kind of upside do you think that Keys has? Because she has had huge flashes in the past. I remember at the US Open when she take a set off Sabalenka 6-love or something before going on to lose that match. Seems like she does have the potential to achieve high-end outcomes. It's just that she seems to melt when it gets to the big stage. But I mean, she's 18-1 to win a Grand Slam when she's on the friendlier side and is minus 200 in the quarterfinal. Like, does she have? And I guess that she should be a massive dog to Sabalenka if that is the final. But Sabalenka still has to go through Gauff. Any interest in backing like an each way price on Keys, or is it just you think she'll just get done by Swiatek in the semi?
I hadn't really thought about an each way price, but you were talking about a parlay between minus 200 and probably plus 400.
Okay, so that's shorter than your each way price on 18-1.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's the play then.
That's I hadn't really thought about that, but the Sabalenka Keys match at the U.S. Open that you're referring to, that was in the semifinals. Again, like Sabalenka in her own head in the semifinals, like that was part of the equation there, I think. And she was. She was bageled in the first set and then won 2 tiebreaks, 7-6, 7-6. So that was no disrespect to Keys. Like, Keys was playing well that day. She just couldn't quite get it across the line. So I think the problem is when you look at the losses for Keys at the slam level, they're all kind of like, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. She ran into one of the best women in the world playing at the top of their game, and I don't think that it's as much of, like the moment is too big for her in those spots. But, but in general, like her win-loss, her hold break, just her statistical DNA when it's a Grand Slam level is it's just better than regular tour stuff. So she's got the big game mentality. It's just that sometimes she runs into an opponent who's just too hard to defeat. Naomi Osaka at the U.S. Open in the semifinals back in 2018 was a good example. Keys ran into a buzzsaw that day. Even Sloane Stephens in the semifinals at Roland Garros, as well as that final in the U.S. Open where Sloane took her down 6-3, 6-0. Yeah, that one maybe was the one where Keys wasn't really mentally there, but she's a accomplished player, and I would love for her to have sort of that career defining moment. But I don't know that I think she needed help, really, and maybe it's not too late. There's definitely chances for some of the other women here to wobble, and at that point, then Keys runs away with it. So each way is a fun way to play that. Actually, I didn't even thought of that.
Yeah, okay. That's the play, the Bet the Edge endorsed play. Madison Keys each way, if you can get 18-1 on that. Okay, watch the biggest names in sports talk, including Mike Florio, Dan Patrick, Dan Lebitard, and Matthew Berry, as they cover the biggest moments on and off the field each weekday on the NBC Sports Now channel. It is now available on Peacock and free on most streaming platforms. Learn more at nbcsports.com/now.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, let's close out talking the men's side. Tuesday evening quarterfinals, Ben Shelton, minus 300 against your man, Lorenzo Sonego, plus 240. The great Jannik Sinner, battling at the moment. He's minus 550 against Alex de Minaur, who's plus 400. Do you have a bet in either of these matches?
Yeah, really two really fun handicaps, honestly. Sinner de Minaur is fun for reasons that are not obvious. If there was kind of a worst possible case draw for a player like Alex de Minaur, it's getting a quarterfinal head-to-head against Jannik Sinner on his home tournament in Australia. The amount of pressure that has been put on the shoulders of de Minaur as far as being a contender to win this title and being kind of praised and lifted up in the Australian media as this coming force is warranted because his game is clean. It is, he doesn't really have key and obvious weaknesses, but he does have one problem, and that is that he is effectively a clay pigeon for Jannik Sinner. Jannik Sinner owns his game, and it is the head-to-head here is so glaringly one-sided. And it's all recent stuff, and it's on all kinds of different surfaces in different events, and including a 2022 straight sets thrashing here at the Australian Open in the round of 16. So his head-to-head record, if you were curious, is 0-9. This has sort of Malfi Djokovic kind of potential as far as a lopsided head-to-head over the course of careers. At least the way it started, and I hope he breaks through. But Coco Gauff broke through against Iga at one point when she had sort of this similar problem, and so I'm not saying it's impossible, but that he is definitely facing tall odds. Now, what goes in his favor for this matchup, besides the home crowd support, although that comes with pressure, is that Jannik Sinner is not 100% right now. His performance against Holger Rune was kind of marred by a clear and obvious illness. He had to take about a 10 or 12-minute break at one point off court to get treatment. And in general, the conditions and the heat and the wear and tear of playing through that type of, deleterious condition, that has consequences. Like I don't think he's going to wake up feeling good today. And I don't know that he'll wake up and be 100% physically for this matchup against de Minaur. And so I'm inclined to think that this is a little bit of an opportunity for de Minaur to slay the dragon. And you're getting a massive price for a very good player. And I know if not now, when is sort of my opinion here, right? Like if you don't get him now, like are you ever going to? And that there might be enough of a tailwind here with considering the illness for Sinner that this is the time to get involved. So I took a little bit at plus 450 in this market head to head against Sinner. I'm against Sinner all over the place here for the tournament. I'm heavy Alcaraz. Obviously, we don't know the result of Alcaraz Djokovic yet, but I'm into that match. I'm into his future, and in general, Sinner's taking some more damage with at least a longer, more physical match here would be my hopes and dreams. And then in the other semifinal, I completely agree that Mr. Ben Shelton is the player to beat. His game has always been perfect for the Australian Open conditions in terms of speed and what skill set you really need to have to excel here. And seeing him put it all together and make a semifinal run is pretty cool. And I think he's the rightful favorite over Mr. Sonego, even though Sonego, to his own right, has played better tennis than I think anyone expected coming into this. And Italy's having a moment. So best way to bet Shelton, in my opinion, is the set handicap. I played -1.5 sets for Shelton, so a 3-0 or a 3-1 lead, and you're home free there. And my fair price on that is about -160. So if you can find anything better than that, I got -135. We ride Shelton hopefully against de Minaur.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. Stressful evening coming up in the Croucher household, Drew. Big position on Mr. Zverev, so I'll be staying up late to watch him hopefully not bottle it as he is prone to. Don't like the head-to-head record against Tommy Paul, even though, one of those games was one of those matches a long time ago. And the most recent one wasn't even that recent. It was close, but yeah, needs Sasha to do the business. Great guy to cheer for. Up late at night by oneself. Okay, we are done for today. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself and Drew, we'll see you tomorrow.